It is NHL Draft Week, finally. We're going to talk about it with Chris Peters, but first we've got to break down the big Blackhawks trade from the weekend and the very predictable TJ Brodie buyout. Join us next on CHGO Blackhawks. Happy Monday here on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. I am a very sweaty and damp Jay Zawoski. That's Mario Tirabassi. Cannot speak to his moisture levels, but I'm assuming...
Equally sweaty and damp.
Yeah.
But the Grundle's great, thanks to Mando.
Good Grundle. Good old Grundle.
Yeah.
Greg Bragg's fresh Grundle over there running the show as well. We have got a lot to get to today. It is draft week.
Yeah.
It's here finally after flapping gums for 9 months, it feels like.
12 months.
It's finally here. We get to talk about the draft. We also have some Hawks news. You've got the Burakovsky trade, the TJ Brodie buyout, and Trevor Zegras has been traded to the Flyers, not the Blackhawks. We'll get into all that.
I have never wanted John Tortorella to have kept the job.
I know.
More in
how
my
fun
life.
would that have been? Oh, man, we've got that. We've got Chris Peters talking draft. We've got everything going on. We also... This week, in celebration of the draft and free agency and everything going on around sports, the CHGO $36 Die Hard Make Your Move sale is live right now. That's right. You get a Die Hard membership for $36 for the year. And yes, that indeed includes a free t-shirt. Yes, it includes 20% off all merch beyond that, all our events, all of our takeovers, all of our watch parties. If you need a ticket, if it's an item that we sell, it's 20% off. So jump on it. Go to allchgo.com/intro to take advantage of this amazing deal, again, in celebration of NBA, NHL Draft Week, and free agency on July 1st. It's my favorite time of year. I'm sure you love it too.
Like the busiest 2 weeks now that we'll have all summer.
Yes.
This week and next week. We also throw into the mix of not only the draft and free agency, but the off-ice prospect camp. It's different than it was a couple of years ago, but still things for us to go and listen to the guys talk about and meet who's going to be the new 2025 draft class, who are the newest prospects. So that's going to be exciting that we just got that schedule earlier today. So yeah, this will be probably the most chaotic and most fun 2 weeks of the summer.
Can't wait.
It'll eventually grind to a halt.
And we will be on live during the first round on Friday. Then Saturday, we'll be here ready for any breaking news, but we're going to do a reaction show when the final rounds wrap up. So just a ton to get to. Let's start with the trade. This weekend, the Hawks acquire Andre Burakovsky from the Seattle Kraken in exchange for Joe Veleno, who, if you listen, kind of a couple people speculating that he might be a buyout candidate simply because there's not really a roster spot on the bottom six for him. So you bring in Burakovsky, who's got $5.5 million left for 2 years. Had 37 points in 79 games last year, had been battling some injuries over the last few years, but a couple really solid years with Colorado. This feels like another one of these Kyle Davidson, Reclamation, Ilya Mikheyev, Jason Dickinson type deals. He's got good success in those, so it looks like that's where we're at with Burakovsky too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a low-risk move. I think if Joe Veleno truly was headed towards a buyout, you get a player in return for him that could at least be serviceable, you'd think.
Yeah.
Rather than just eating dead money for 2 seasons. And yeah, I mean, Burakovsky is a guy that I think kind of fits into that, like, maybe not on the exact same level, but close to a Teravainen and Bertuzzi kind of guy where it's like, yeah, he'll be in your middle six. He should probably give you, if he's back of the hockey card, he's about 40 points. Like, if you get something out of that, it's a win because it's more than what you're going to get for Joe Veleno, and I think it's a move that not only elevates them reaching the cap floor, but I think it also even minorly, elevates the floor of the team. I think Burakovsky versus Veleno, whoever's going to be in your NHL roster, I think you made the NHL roster just slightly better. And if Burakovsky's a guy that, finds, that rhythm he had just a few years ago pre those injuries in Seattle, I think it's a win. So I don't think it's something that blocks anybody. I know that's a concern that a lot of people have with the rebuild as it goes in, is just like, okay, if you're bringing in these guys, you don't want anybody to be blocked. I don't think it's going to do that. I think if anything, it can help elevate the talent level around some of these young guys. And he's a guy that's been on 2 Cup teams, 2018 with the Capitals, 2022 with the Avalanche. So good experience. I think it's a fine trade, even if it is just kind of minor.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things too to keep in mind. Like, I see a lot of people saying like $5.5 million. Don't worry about the cap hit right now. The Hawks have more money than they'll ever need cap wise. That's not a concern at all. So don't worry about the money. I will say this though, like, this can't be the move.
No.
And I don't think it is the move, but man, the more you read from Ben Pope and Scott Howard is like, don't expect a lot. Don't expect a whole lot this summer. If Burakovsky is the only move, I think Hawks fans are rightfully frustrated.
I don't think it's going to be the only move. I mean, that's how we felt about Mikheyev.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's different vibes heading into different summers, but when the Mikheyev trade happened, we were like, well, this isn't all they're doing, right? And obviously it wasn't. I don't think this is going to be the biggest thing. This isn't even the biggest thing that they've done in the last week. I'd say getting Donato done was bigger than they making this move. So I think there's still going to be something, maybe not as big and splashy. It's not going to be a cannonball from the 10-meter diving board or anything like that. But I still think there's going to be something that happens in the next week and a half where, again, it's a move that is going to be aggressive, whether it's getting a player in or moving up in the draft, whether it's up from 3 or up from 25, whatever we see. I think there's going to be a move that still happens in the next week and a half that you look at and you say, ooh, that was big. That was something that can move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, look, does Burakovsky make this team better? Yes, he does.
I think so.
He's a better player than Joe Veleno. It's proven, puts up better numbers. You'll be able to use him with a little more versatility. Veleno was kind of limited to your bottom line. And he was okay for the Hawks, but, doesn't make the team better. Burakovsky makes the team better, deeper, up front. And who knows, we've been talking about the rumors all summer. JJ Peterka or Bowen Byram from Buffalo or any of these, Jason Robertson or any of these trade targets we've talked about. Then today, Trevor Zegras gets traded out of the blue. There's things happening around the league that no one knows. There are no whispers about Trevor Zegras getting traded.
There's always some low-level, Zegras.
He's the hottest name on the market.
He's always in the rumors. Yeah. But then it was
But in terms of it's hot right now that he's imminently going to be traded.
That was just this morning's 32 Thoughts. When Elliot Freeman was saying hey, don't be surprised if Zegras is on the move for real. And then a few hours later, he's on the move.
Exactly. So there are things happening that we're not privy to just yet. So I'm fine with the trade as long as it's not the only thing. Which I would be shocked if it is the only thing.
I don't think it will be.
If they're shopping the number 3 pick, if they're, you know what I mean, if that is truly in the cards, they are. It feels like they are trying for a big swing. Mm-hmm. You're not giving up the 3rd pick for another Tyler Bertuzzi.
No, you're doing it for someone who's a immediate impact, high end, going to improve the team, fits the timeline, all those things. It feels like a guy like Peterka or Robertson feels like that's who they would move it for, and that's who the smoke is surrounding. But we'll see if anything like that materializes for Chicago. I'm sure, as I've said, throughout the offseason and other people have said, well, they should be in on XYZ. They should be in on Marner, Robertson, Peterka. People are like, they should have been in on Z. They probably were. It's just what actually crosses the finish line.
Yeah, you know what? As far as Zegras goes, I don't know if they were interested in him. When you find a guy with that kind of talent that is in trade rumors all the time and just he can't stay healthy, you Joel Quenneville is now the coach of the Ducks, and I don't think it's any coincidence that he was quickly shipped out after that was made. That could be Joel Quenneville's feedback of, no.
Don't give me that player.
Don't want that here.
Yeah.
No.
That's unsurprising.
Yeah, so we'll see. And Singus X1 says the Blackhawks continue in their fine tradition of acquiring bums. Burakovsky is 30, and his best year he had 61 points, and he's never had more than 45 points after that. Well, I get that, but 61 points is not a bum, and he's had injuries since then, and you got him for literally nothing.
Yeah. Not every trade is for a superstar. Superstars don't trade teams every year. This isn't the NBA. It's a completely different ballgame, and I think Davidson and the Hawks are squarely in their own camp that the future is going to be pushed forward by the young players that they're bringing in, and up until now we haven't seen them do the big splash, get the best player that's on the market, free agent or trade or anything like that. They don't feel it's time yet. So we can argue 5 days a week for an hour about, is it the time, is it not the time? It's on the Hawks' internal timeline. Well,
what's interesting to me, though, and with that in mind, is they went after Jake Gensel last summer.
Yeah.
So for the right guy, they felt it was time. So if they're not going after Zegras, it's not a lack of desire to try to make the team better. It's just they don't like that particular player. And look, there's a lot of people around the league that are not in on Trevor Zegras. He was available for 2 years, and it finally happened today.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot. I think when you look at like fans versus people in hockey, Zegras is way more adored by the fans because they see the highlight reel stuff. They see the Michigan goals. They see him on the cover of the NHL video game. He's in commercials. Seems like the next big thing, and then drops off big time because of injury. I don't think people around the league see Trevor Zegras as a must-have superstar piece like a lot of fans do. The truth is probably in the middle. And Ben asked in the chat, when is the time to add a player? That's a good question. I mean, I'm of the mind that it's now.
In my opinion, it would be this offseason.
Yes.
It would have been try and get Mitch Marner, but it doesn't. Again, it just doesn't seem like that is going to be the way that they have things planned out. And maybe next summer is the way that is the route that they go, because they want to give this young group more time. Give them, it was flashy to see the young guys, but that was for the most part the last quarter of the season, where we were talking about 8, 9, 10 guys in a lineup a night that were under 25, under 23, stuff like that. So they probably want to see a full season of what a lot of these guys who are just transitioning from college to the pro, or just coming up from junior, or maybe having an opportunity to come up from the AHL, what they actually have, so that maybe next summer is when they say, this is what we know we have, a better understanding of it, and what you need, or what can fit better.
Well, yeah, Connor McDavid. He'll be a free agent after next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't Pierre LeBrun have the Hawks as one of the destinations where he might end up?
Sure did say that, yeah. That was interesting.
Yeah, Hawks need a second-line center.
TJ Brodie bought out. You called it night
29. I was surprised it took me 29 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think we probably spent the first half of the show just talking about the atmosphere of Utah.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, you were right.
29 minutes into our first post-game show, I've said TJ Brodie will be bought out.
Brodie doesn't have it. And you know what? He didn't make a stink about it when he got benched. Midway through the season, he's a guy that it just seems like just doesn't have it anymore to the level that he was being paid to. So yeah, he'll have an opportunity to go anywhere else should he get a deal. And I think that's best business for him and for the Hawks.
Good luck to him. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hit that like button. Remember, take advantage of our Die Hard sale. $36 for the year. AllCHGO.com/intro. Takes about 2 minutes to sign up, so do it now and then come back on the other side of this break.
Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. New customers can now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Win or lose, sign up using the code CHGO Bet365. Deposit $10 and place a $5 bet to get $150 in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. NHL's over. NBA's over. Now it's fully baseball season. And with the Bet365 early payout offer, you're a winner if your team goes up by 5 runs with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Download the app, use the code CHGO365 when you sign up to get that awesome offer, $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, whether your bet wins or loses. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER. In-app only.
And just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage. Get it at Empire today. They've got the greatest flooring experts in the area. We've all been to those big box stores looking for flooring. Nope, you wonder endless aisles. You're not sure what to get. The people there don't know how to help you. No, leave it to the experts with Empire today. They bring the showroom right to your home. Pick the right flooring and right colors for your space. See how it looks with your furniture in your house. With Empire today, you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code CHGO. That's right, a $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details. All right, we are 13 minutes away from Chris Peters and his draft breakdown. If you missed it, he had Anton Frondell
We have to ask
going number 2, which would make Michael Misa likely available for the Blackhawks to 3. Very exciting. We'll talk to him in now about 12 minutes.
Can I give you my life
Yes,
revelation?
please. By all means.
I'm 35 years old, and I am making the commitment right now in front of the world. I am committing to elastic waistbands for the rest of my life.
Wow, that's early.
You know what? I put on a pair of shorts. I had a pair of shorts that got some stains on them, so I had to put on an older pair of shorts the other day, and the button was doing a ton of work.
Oh, I've been there.
And I was like, you know what? I think it might be time for some new shorts. Went to the store, tried on a couple different pairs of shorts, and the only ones I walked away with were the elastic waistband ones. These ones included.
I think it's the I am fighting hard against the elastic waist. I think it's because I'm a fat guy, and I feel like once I get to elastic waist life, it's over for me, and I should just mail it in.
The style has completely changed from a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
because now it's just like I have pants that I'll wear to games, and they're nice pants and they're elastic waistband. The pairs of shorts I got are nice shorts, elastic waistband. It's just so much easier. I don't want to wear a belt ever again. I don't want to have to deal with buttons and flies ever again. Like, it's just much more comfortable.
All right.
So
where are you on elastic pants,
that's where I'm at.
Braggs? You wear elastic pants, or are you still a buckle guy?
I'm team elastic pants.
Yeah?
For sure. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's just
be on the right side of history.
It's to me, it's like fat guy getting suspenders. Like, well, I have completely mailed it in. I have no interest in looking good.
Though.
No, I know you're right. I know you're right. I just I got to hold out as long as I can. On the I got the ratchet belt though. You ever use the ratchet belt?
Those are nice.
Ooh,
yeah,
top notch. Good stuff.
I've only had those in dress pants for like weddings and stuff, but like those are nice.
It's really great in an emergency too.
Oh, for sure.
Like you have to it's like zip.
Well, I mean, Lebowski in the chat says, "What's next? Velcro shoes." And both of you guys
I got
have
the Hey
shoes
Dudes
where
on.
you're not tying your
yeah.
shoes.
No Velcro, no ties.
These are the slip-ons.
That's the way to go.
Actually, I tie my shoes once the day I buy them, and I never tie them again. I just stuff
all
my
shoes can become slip-ons.
Yes, they're all slip-ons if you try hard enough. All right,
yeah.
let's get to the bursting mail sack before we get to speaking of
which is also
elastic waist pants. Let's get to the mailbag before we get to Chris Peters. Now we got some diehard questions for Chris, so we're gonna do that today too. But let's get some of the ones meant for us in here first. Dealer's choice, Braggs. There we go. This one from Gary Ross says, if you were a professional hockey player in the NHL, which 5 NHL teams are on your no trade list?
I got my list.
Oh, that's exciting. I like that.
All right.
Where would I not want to play?
My 5 are Nashville,
Okay.
Buffalo,
Yeah.
Columbus,
Okay. All right.
Calgary,
Yeah, that's a good one.
and St. Louis.
Okay. Yeah.
I just don't want to live and play in those markets.
I like the market of Columbus, so I would not hate that. I will say the Islanders.
I don't want to go to Ohio.
Yeah, I don't want to play for the Islanders.
Sure, that's fair.
Buffalo, I will never win anything ever. There's 2. St. Louis, yeah, no St. Louis for me. Also Nashville, I can't wear those uniforms.
See,
And I'm tempted to say Anaheim, but it's California, man.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
complete.
that's-
I'll go to Anaheim. That's fine.
I don't know. You know what?
5 is tough. I wish I had more.
It would be hard for me to
5.
pull a Red Wing sweater over my head too.
Sure,
So
Yeah.
I'll throw that on there.
I get it.
Yeah. I like that question. That's a good one.
I might also throw, if I had a 6th, I know this might be unpopular because they're like contenders. Winnipeg. I don't think I want to Winnipeg.
I don't wanna live in
I don't
Winnipeg
wanna
in the
live in
winter.
Winnipeg. Yeah.
I might throw Toronto in there too because I'm too sensitive. I'm like Mitch Marner. I would fall apart. Too much
Thin
criticism.
skin.
I am too thin-skinned for that. So yeah, throw Toronto in there
Can't
for me
stand
too.
the media. Yeah.
All right,
That's a
next
good one. I
one
like
is
that.
from Heisenberg.
It's from the Pope.
Oh, it is from the Pope. Thanks, Pope. He says, now that the Blackhawks have newly acquired Andre Burakovsky and re-signed Ryan Donato, should they trade Dickinson or Mikheyev, or both, to open up a roster spot for players like Doc and Slaggert? I don't think that's off the table. I think Dickinson probably has more trade value.
I mean, Mikheyev had a really
He
good
did
year.
have a really
last
good year, but Dickinson's a
They're
center.
Both on expiring deals.
The kind of guy, though, that like in the playoffs would be really valuable,
Mm-hmm.
can play up and down.
I'm
I'm trying to think, like, if I'm a contender and I can add one of those guys, who am I adding? I think I'm going Dickinson.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend. I mean, if you're talking about a trade deadline move, depends on how their seasons are going. But no, I mean, I don't think getting Burakovsky, keeping Donato, I don't think like we were just kind of talking about. I don't think it really blocks anybody. I think the guys who are going to have the opportunities are going to work themselves into the lineup and get them. And honestly, to the players mentioned in the question, there's a world in which all 4 of those guys are on the roster.
Yeah.
6 of them, rather, where Mikheyev and Dickinson play and are serviceable. And then you also have Doc and Slager. Like, there's an opportunity for those guys to all play together and all be serviceable. Dickinson, though, I will say, feels like a guy that is, depending on how this season goes, and last year he battled injuries and everything, and it was had a new child last year, I believe, that was going on with him.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of things going on in life, and the team wasn't really good, and he was having a little bit of a down year. So like his end of the season media availability, it did feel like a guy who is going to give his efforts. He's going to put in the efforts, buy in, do everything he can, but also kind of just like, if it's not going well, maybe I want to head somewhere else to have a better a better chance of winning or being valued in a different way. But I think he's a guy that is still going to be pretty serviceable, like third line center, like perfect for him. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't think you need to necessarily move anybody right now.
Yeah, I think deadline or mid-season is where you're looking, because you don't want to. Because right now, here are the 12 forwards. I'm looking at cap wages: Bertuzzi, Burakovsky, Teravainen, Foligno, Dickinson, Mikheyev, Donato, Reichel, Bedard, Nazar, Slaggert, Doc. There's your 12. Mm-hmm. They have Kurashev, Athanasiou. Those guys are both going to be gone. So you want to have 14 forwards. There's your Ryan Green. There's your Oliver Moore. Maybe Aiden Thompson makes the team instead of one of those guys. Maybe Vanacker or Spelisi makes the team. Savoie, maybe. But my fear is I don't want to go into this season with a bunch of kids up front and then learn they're not ready and not have anyone to help them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather go into this season with what I mentioned, those 12, and then wherever you want the other 2 to be. And then if there's kids that can't be denied anymore, then you figure it out. And you trade somebody or you send somebody, waive somebody, whatever it might be.
Right.
You can do that. It happened with I know Joey Anderson isn't Dickinson or Mikheyev, but what's crazy is Dickinson is younger than Mikheyev. He's a year younger than Mikheyev.
29?
Yeah, he's 29. Mikheyev is 30.
Yeah.
And who knows? And it also feels like maybe someone on the NHL roster might go. Like, we don't know. Is Lucas Reichel going to be on his team when the season starts? I don't know.
He's the one I have the biggest question mark about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's completely out of the question that somebody like Mikheyev or Dickinson could be moved.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think they would do it with Foligno because he's the captain.
I think they want him.
Yeah.
If you're talking about guys who in the room are bought in, he seems of the veterans, he is the most.
$2 super chat from Ben says, "Can we please move on from Lucas Reichel?" It might go that way. It might go that way. But remember, he's only 23. Like, it's some guys take time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ryan Hartman took time, different players, but I mean, look at Gustav Forsling. Took to his 3rd NHL team to figure things out.
Yeah.
So, and then we got one from Brian who says, "What does success look like this season? What does failure look like this season?" I think success means you're competitive most games. You're hopefully somewhere between 70 and 80 points.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got an ascending Connor Bedard, an ascending Frank Nazar, good rookie seasons from Sam Renzel and Artem Levchinov.
Yeah.
You feel good about the young players. Still, the veterans on this team don't matter to the future. There's not a single veteran on this team that when you look 2-3 years down the road are even part of things here anymore. So you want to see the young players improve. You want to see them be competitive. You want to see Jeff Blashill put his stamp on this team.
Yeah. Failure is the opposite of all that.
Yes.
bottom of the standings, as much as of a high percentage chance as it gives the Hawks of landing Gavin McKenna, is still a failure for what they're trying to achieve, because if you're at the bottom of the standings, it's likely that the young guys are not taking the steps that you're hoping, and that the veterans are letting you down.
Yeah, that would be bad. Can we do one more mailbag one real quick here?
Yes, from
All right.
Hawkeye 7.
You got to read that one, youngster.
Says, "Hey guys, I'm building this question off of one of Greg's chirps from last week, where he was talking some possible growing interest from the Sharks on Anton Frondell. If Misa goes 1 and Frondell 2, Misa and another forward in the top 2, is there any forward left?" I can read. It's just very small. So listeners, don't worry. I can read. On the board that you would take over Schaefer. So is there,
if Schaefer goes 3, do
way,
you take Schaefer?
If Schaefer's on the board at 3, but the Hawks still need forward help, do you go, if Frondell and Misa are gone, do you go Hagens or Martone or Desnoyers over Schaefer? I say
this is my literal nightmare.
I say no.
I take Schaefer.
I think you take Schaefer. I think if the board falls that Matthew Schaefer is,
people would freak the hell out.
If the board falls that Matthew Schaefer is there at 3, which would be wild, like you take him. You take him and you figure it out from there. And that's what we were talking about pre-draft lottery, where it was like, what if Schaefer's there at 2? What if Hawks win the lottery and you're there at number 1? Like, you have the conversation about Matthew Schaefer. He's still a talent and still a guy that is arguably better than any defenseman they have.
Yes.
So,
I mean, if he is the consensus number 1, pretty much from everybody, and we'll talk to Chris Peters from FloHockey here in a minute about it, that you're talking about adding like a Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar type player to your team. As much as we love Renzel and Levchinov, those guys are not Quinn Hughes or Cale Makar.
Yeah.
They're just not. So you add those guys, you figure it out, or you've got Schaefer, Levchinov, Renzel, Vlasic is your top 4. In 3 or 4 years, it's going to be the best top 4 in the NHL.
Yeah.
For real. Like, think about that.
I like it. And that's before you even mentioned Kevin Korchinski.
And look,
who could be in the fold.
And Wyatt Kaiser and Ethan Del Mastro and Nolan Allen and all these young defensemen we like, but we're not so sure of. If you draft Schaefer, you have 4 pretty much sure things on your blue line.
You have 4 guys that could play on the top pair.
Correct.
Where you only need 2.
Yes.
So I think that would be the way to go. And then, we're talking about an abundance of riches defensively. One of those guys you move out, you get equal value from a forward, whoever it could be. That solves your problem.
Yep. All right, we're going to hit the break zone. Then we are going to talk to Chris Peters of FloHockey, the GOAT, because he's on today. We'll talk to you in 2 minutes on CHGO Blackhawks.
GOAT of the day. Hey, it's hot.
Yes.
It's about 100 degrees outside here in Chicago and in the Midwest. It's horrible, and it has been for a few days. Hopefully, your AC unit has been going hard and going to battle for you. If not, you need to call our friends at Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. They've been serving the Chicagoland community for over 50 years. They got you covered for your air conditioning to get checked out and installed, repaired, tuned up, everything that you need to beat the heat this summer. Four Seasons has you covered. Their expert technicians always ensure that you receive reliable service, and if you have an emergency at night, on a weekend, or on a holiday, they don't charge extra for those services. Gotta love that, especially when it's this stinking hot out. Your trusted local experts are Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all of their special offers and money-saving coupons. Again, that's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
And there's nothing like going to a rival city to watch your favorite MLB team kick the crap out of your favorite rival. And related, the Cubs are in St. Louis this week, and if you want to go see them, check out Game Time, the official ticketing partner of CHGO. You can pick your zone, you can customize your spot, you can see the views from your seat, because when you're going to a rival city, you're not familiar with the stadium, you want to know exactly what you're going to see. They've got last-minute deals, zone deals, all the fees are included, so you know upfront exactly what you're going to get, and they've got that lowest price guarantee. Find it cheaper, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we're back on CHGO Blackhawks. Actually, we never left. That was live. Do us a favor. Hit that like button. We are dangerously low on likes for as many people as we have watching. And remember, our $36 Die Hard sale happening now. AllCHGO.com/intro. Jump on that deal in celebration of draft week and free agency and all that jazz. And speaking of the draft, we're going to go out to our buddy Chris Peters of FloHockey, joining us on the busiest week of his year all the time. We appreciate it, Chris. How are you, man? It's good to see you.
Jay, I'm great. Feeling good. I heard I'm the GOAT because I'm on today.
Well,
or is it just? I mean, is there an expiration on such a thing?
No. Here's the truth. Here's the truth.
It was like all time.
I can't publicly call you my favorite draft analyst because we have other draft analysts on, and I don't want to offend them. But wink, wink, it's you.
Yeah, I mean, how many of them are from the southwest side of Chicago?
Exactly.
Like how many were born and raised from the Chicago Catholic League? I mean, come on now.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. I mean, whenever I'm looking at drafts, you're the first guy I pull up, and that's the truth. So,
see, there you go.
We got to take issue with you throwing a hand grenade into our weekends by suggesting that Anton Frondella is going to go and Michael Misa is going to be there for the Hawks. That was how you mocked it. Explain yourself, GOAT.
Yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic. Obviously, everybody knows that the top two guys for much of the season now have been Matthew Schaefer and Michael Misa. The crazy part is this is the time of year where you start to hear little rumblings of various things that may buck the trend. Now, there were no rumblings at this point that Beckett Seneca was going to go as high as he did in the last draft, and then he did. And so these things happen. While there's a large consensus that Michael Misa is number two, it's not 100%. And in talking with scouts around the league, there was one rumor that prevailed among above the rest, and that is the serious consideration that the Sharks are seriously considering Frondell over Misa, which would leave Misa available for the Hawks. I think that would be an easy pick for them if he does go there. Now, here's the thing. Like, anything can happen. There's lots of different things that can happen. What I would say at this point, because you always get more information, at this point, I would say that it's still a possibility that Frundell is picked second. I would say the more likely scenario is that Misa goes second, but there is also the potential for any sorts of shenanigans with the top of the draft, with trades and all these other things that are kind of coming around. But I think that the real thing that came out of this, and I think this is factual just because I don't think it would get out there if it doesn't benefit the Sharks for them to be saying anything other than Misa, because I think that's the player that most teams would covet and would if there was a trade down scenario, if there was an opportunity to get something else and you'd be comfortable taking Frundell, then that's a possibility. But it comes down right now that was out there and it was being talked about, and it's not multiple teams. I texted a lot of people that day. I was like, "Are you hearing this? Is this legit?" And no one could say with 100% certainty that that's what would happen, but that was what was out there. And so I do have one more mock draft coming out. We'll see what it says once I get more information. But basically, what I think will happen is, regardless, one of those two guys is going second overall, and one of those two guys is going third overall. I think that's ultimately what will happen when the draft is completed.
Okay.
Hey, I mean, better than a non-zero chance that Michael Misa could fall. I'll take that at this point because we've kind of reserved ourselves that he wouldn't be there. He'd either be gone at 1 or gone at 2 if the Blackhawks are staying there at number 3. So I'll take some hopes and some prayers that some shenanigans happen, because it's, as it's been going on this draft cycle and for the last couple of months, he's felt like the top forward.
Yeah,
it's what the Blackhawks need is help at forward. And every time we've heard from locally from either Ben Pope or Scott Powers or anything about what they believe the Hawks are going to be doing, it's with the caveat of, if Michael Misa is not available, XYZ. So it seems like for the Hawks, their target is him if he's there.
Yeah, and I think that you have to prepare for all scenarios, and a lot of people have asked, like, why would the Sharks even consider Frundell over Misa, and there's a legitimate reason for it. I think when you look at where the Sharks are right now, they obviously have Macklin Celebrini as their number 1 center. They have Will Smith as their basically he could be a center, he could be a wing. We're still not entirely sure what he'll be. But a lot of the same things have been said about Misa. Is he for sure a center? I think a lot of people believe that, yes, he'll be a center. And I think if he is your number 2 center over Will Smith, then I think you've got a real good opportunity to have another loaded second line as well with Misa in the mix. But I think that there's less concern about Frundell in terms of his two-way capability. He's got a bit of a size and strength advantage, not by much, similar in size to Misa, but a bit thicker and stronger, and has played against men. And I think there's a sense that the teams are not giving that much away in terms of offense. If he's the guy, he has one of the best shots in the draft. He has one of the best, the most complete packages of, like, in terms of skill and two-way capabilities. But I think that there's certainly much less consensus about what he's going to be than I feel like there is for Misa. So either way, I think, like, the question is like, you need to have a number 2 center behind Celebrini. Which guy do you think is the best fit for that? And it might be the harder two-way guy with the great shot like Frundell, as opposed to the flash and dash, more offensive-minded center when you already have Will Smith and have seen some of the success that he's had. So it's a real fascinating dynamic, but I do think that those are probably the two guys that are most likely to go in the top 3. And I think in the Blackhawks case, Misa obviously riding shotgun or being the secondary option after Bedard is a really great possibility as well. I think that we've been talking a lot about them needing to get a dynamic element, more of a dynamic element up front. I think you also have a potential to have, if Bedard is a full-time center, Misa would be your number 2 center more than likely, or he'd be your number 1 center, and you flare out Bedard to the wing to maximize his scoring potential and minimize some of the defensive deficiencies that you might have. So there's a lot of, you can talk yourself into circles about all of this right here. Yes, I would say Misa on my board, he is number 2 on my board. Frundell is number 4 on my board. So, like that's the way it kind of goes. I don't think the gap between Misa and then I have Hagen's third, Frundell, Martone, that mix, I don't think the gap is huge, even though he had such a tremendously productive season, the best and most productive season since Patrick Kane's draft year in the OHL.
Could you make the argument you made about the Sharks and Frundell that with the Blackhawks with Bedard and Nazar? They've got Celebrini and Smith. The Hawks have Bedard and Nazar. And, I know there's some question on whether Bedard's a full-time center and if Nazar's a full-time center, but Nazar especially held his own there as a rookie, played really well, turned a lot of heads. Could they be looking at Frundell in that sort of in the same way of, okay, well, let's see. Now we can get a guy who's more, two-way reliable with maybe you dip at the scoring a little bit. I don't know. Could that be their mindset with Frundell too?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Because, I'm a big believer in Frank Nazar. I think he's going to be a tremendous player for the Blackhawks. I think, he's going to have an impact on that team in so many different ways. But what Frundell would give you is a bigger, harder, stronger two-way center there. Because, Frank will play on both sides of the puck. He's committed on both sides of the puck. He does all those things, but he does it, obviously, he's a bit smaller than Frundell. Frundell is closer to 6'2". He's already over 200 pounds. He's going to be a guy that is going to be a handful to play against. He plays downhill. He gets, he does a lot of things that are really helpful to generating offense. And on top of that, he's responsible defensively. And so I think you could make the case that, hey, maybe he is ultimately, if we do move Bedard to the wing, maybe he's the guy that rides with him. And then you've got 2 really legitimate scoring threats on your top line that would be really difficult to match up against. Or you also have the option of, say, maybe Nazar's the guy that can be the go do everything, go get the puck, hunt pucks on the line with Bedard as a winger, as he played at the World Championship, and, potentially do it that way as well. Or in another scenario, maybe he's your 3C. There's all these different things that kind of come into play. The Hawks are at an advantage because they have a lot of centers and guys that can play center. What they don't have a lot of right now is that size and in their top 6, that ability to get bigger and stronger in their top 6, which is why I think Frundell is a very enticing option there, and why Misa as well, because he's got some strength to him. He's really developed himself over the years to be a more well-rounded player. So I think either of those guys make a lot of sense there. I think they make the most sense probably given where the Hawks are right now in the rebuilding phase and what they already have on their roster.
I think a lot hedges on what Frank Nazar is, and we've been trying to find an NHL comp for him, and I think we found one the other day. At least I did. Could Frank Nazar be Scott Gomez?
That's an interesting one. I hadn't really considered that. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I think I've kind of referred to Frank more as like a diet Braden Point. It's kind of a, I mean, I don't think I don't think he's going to be a 90-point player necessarily, like Braden Point is. But I think his role with the Blackhawks will be akin to what Point is to the Lightning. I'm way higher, I think, on Nazar than most of the public, prospect people would be. I've seen him. I've seen what he can do, and then I also just saw what he did at the World Championship and how he really. I mean, that tournament has been a launching point for a number of players in their career, and I felt like we saw him break out, and I have high expectations for him for next year.
Excited. Let's get to our diehard questions.
Yeah, we've got some diehards that want to ask you a couple questions here, and if you don't want to miss out on this next time, everybody, you want to get these special questions in for Chris. ALLCHGO.com/intro. Become a diehard for $36 on the year. What do we got? Let's get one in.
Got Braggs. Toss one up there on the screen. All right, this is from a loyal follower, Windy City Hockey loyal diehard. Could a draft day trade like this actually work between the Blackhawks and Lightning? Heading to Chicago would be Isaac Howard and Dylan Duke. Heading to Tampa would be Lucas Reichel and the 25th overall pick. What do you think, Chris?
That's an interesting one. I think because of the fact that Howard could choose not to sign, there's more risk there. I think the idea of getting Reichel plus a first round pick would be fairly rich for that return. Again, now with both Isaac Howard and Dylan Duke, those are two sub 6 foot forwards. I don't see a fit there for Chicago. I think that would be, maybe I have thought that there's a chance that maybe Lucas Reichel does need a change of scenery. I don't know what ultimately the value is going to be to another team at this point. I think you'd be selling fairly low on the player. So I think in theory, something like that could work. I just don't think that those two players in particular would fit into where the Hawks are going. That with guys like Nazar and Bedard, having two smaller players, that I love the way Dylan Duke plays. He's more of a bottom six probably guy. And then Howard obviously won the Hobie Baker last year. But again, we're talking about smaller skilled players. I just think the Hawks probably have their fill on that. I love small guys. I think, get them. I'm 5'9.5", so that means 5'10". So it's just I like that with these players, but there is some such a thing as too much of one thing, and I think the Hawks are that. To me, that just wouldn't make sense for the Hawks.
Too much, not enough size.
Too much, not enough size, yes.
We got one from Scott, Iowa 23, says, will there be a surprise in the top 5 like Beckett Seneke from last year? Who could it be?
Well, I mean, if it does go Frundell too, I mean, that's a pretty explosive thing if it does happen that way. If there's a guy that, I think the rumors have been out there about Brady Martin potentially being a guy that goes in the top 5, and I think that would be less of a surprise now than it was when Seneca went 3rd last year. I do think that there's a lot of potential that Martin, could go for, probably 4, 5, 6, somewhere in that range, maybe 7. So it's maybe less of a surprise. But the guy that I'm wondering about is the guy with the most amount of risk that you could pick in that area, and that's Roger McQueen. 6'5" center, back injury, uncertainty about health, things like that. That's, I think you have to be pretty bold to take that player in the top 5. I know Barry Trotz from the Nashville Predators has said that they want to be more aggressive. They want to bet on upside. They want to bet on skill, but I don't think they want to give away size. So I could see like a Porter Martone going there, but I could also very much see, and as I did on my mock draft, have Roger McQueen going to the Nashville Predators. That to me would be a surprise because I think enough teams in that top 10 range are concerned about, the injury history there and whether or not that's a risk they're willing to take.
All right.
Next.
Couple more brags.
One from Fatty Beef. Is the deck shuffling in terms of draft order and ranking these guys more because of a lack of talent or an immaturity in their overall game, which presents a real don't know what you don't know scenario?
I mean, I think the deck always kind of gets shuffled once we get more information from teams and once we have a feeling of the draft order. I think once the draft order is set, then you start thinking about, well, who fits where. And I think, the New York Islanders winning the draft lottery threw a wrench in everything. I mean, they'll still more than likely pick Matthew Schaefer at number 1 overall and have their number 1 defenseman. But again, that's a team, them and Utah being much higher than they were expected to be based on the draft lottery, creates this scenario where you've got teams that are like, now I'm in a range where I have to look at something else. So let's take an example. Like James Higgins has fallen a bit throughout the draft year. Not for me. I mean, I did have him 1 at the very beginning of the year, and now he's 3. So I guess he dropped, but I've seen Mackenzie's list came out and he's 7th. I think part of it is because of the ton of centers and that there are a lot of big centers available. I love Brady Martin. I love the way he plays. I cannot see an instance where he is going to impact the game in a greater way than James Higgins will, and produce at the level that James Higgins will. And I felt the same way when comparing Higgins to, other bigger players like Porter Martone and others, and Frundell for that matter. And so, to me, he's the best option. But because he's 5'10" and a half, which is 5'11" in my world, is basically, he's behind some of those guys. Jake O'Brien is 6'2", Brady Martin is 6 foot, but he hits like a Mack truck. Roger McQueen is 6'5", Porter Martone is 6'3", 6'4". Like that, it's those are the things that kind of factor in. And I think once teams see the Florida Panthers win, they forget the way that the Tampa Bay Lightning won and that the Chicago Blackhawks won Stanley Cups with more skill. And both of those teams had hard players, but their best players weren't the hard players necessarily. I mean, Duncan Keith, obviously a hard player, but not a big defenseman, and impacted the game. And so when I look at, I've said this a lot, because I was like, if you think that James Higgins isn't a playoff performer, I'm going to need you to explain to me why. Because I seem to remember Patrick Kane torching Stanley Cup playoffs, and at a smaller size and from the wing. And I think that James Higgins has elite hockey sense hands. He's not Kane, but I mean, he is going to impact the game with that production. So I think a lot of it comes back to size. He didn't have a great year in college in terms of production, but you put him in the OHL, I bet you any money he would have similar point totals to Misa, just because of how elite that hockey sense and skill is. So it's always tough to compare apples to oranges when we're talking about guys in different leagues. But I think that the shuffling of the deck has a lot more to do with how the board fell and where we think these teams are going to go than necessarily anything that these players particularly did. Because I think that the top 6 or 7 guys have largely been there for most of the year.
All right, got one here from Deadhawk. Says, Chris, one of the things that isn't discussed enough is best overall versus need. How much do you weigh this into your rankings and your draft projections, and where do you think Chicago is at in this discussion? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think it changes over time, right? Like I think that when I build a list, it's always who do I think is going to be the best NHL player, and I do that argument the whole way down the board. Who's going to be the better NHL player? Who's going to be the better NHL player? And that's kind of how it goes. It's a very simplistic way of breaking down the whole process, but that ultimately is what we're trying to do. When it comes to drafting for teams, so when I make a list, I'm not making my list for any specific team. So teams will absolutely weigh things like position, what they already have in their system, what they feel like they lack, and if that is appropriately addressed. And so the way that I see it is best player available is completely relative. Like if you want to go off of Bob McKenzie's list, which is a collection of scouts, it's as good as there is, you can look at that list and you can say, well, the best player available is this guy. But that might not be the case for teams. And it might be a difference of one player on their board. You really don't see their board, so you don't really know. But I have always said the most important thing to any team is fit. And fit can mean a lot of different things. It can mean we need a left shot defenseman. We need a right shot defenseman. We need a right shot center. All of these different things that you could kind of go down the list for. If you have a prospect system that is built up enough, and I would say that Chicago's is, there's a reason we're like, oh, well, if they get number 1, would they still take Matthew Schaefer? I mean, yeah, I heard you guys talking about, Schaefer earlier, and I was like, yeah, probably if he's the legit best player in the draft, which so many people seem to think, I think you'd have to, or maybe you trade back. But I think that for them, it's about what do we already have. And so you look and you see, okay, Oliver Moore, Frank Nazar, Connor Bedard up front among the top tier of their forwards, not big guys. Obviously they all play hard, they're quick, all that stuff. But maybe that's why you look and you say, okay, well, a Frundell is a better fit for what we're building and what we need. I think, that's the other thing is like James Higgins, again, I think he would be the best option at number 3 because he's number 3 on my list. But I also understand that Chicago can't go into is a Connor Bedard, James Higgins, both guys sub 6 foot as your top 2 centers. a realistic thing to for a contending team? And I would argue that it's probably not, unless you found other ways to supplement that size. And then I also think, there's a lot of different ways to build a team. And I think I obviously I love the draft. I love covering this. I love following prospects. I love doing this job. But as we've seen from the Vegas Golden Knights, from the Florida Panthers, I mean, Florida, their core came from the draft largely, but their starting goalie didn't. Most of their D core didn't. Most of the rest of their team didn't. They had Barkov and Ekblad and Lundell. Like, there's not a lot of guys that are homegrown talents. There are many ways to build a contending team, and there are many ways to supplement size. So I think that in general, you want to pick the best player available, but that player also has to fit into your system and where you're going to be in the next 5 years based on what you know about the rest of your roster.
Well, we should probably talk about Caleb Denoyer because there is a chance the Hawks take him. We just want to be prepared for Friday in case that's if the Hawks end up with that pick. What are they getting?
Well, I think to me, Denoyer is right behind Frundell on my list at 5. He's one of my favorite players in this draft, mainly because he does everything. He's a winning player. He played through injury through most of the season. He had a quieter Memorial Cup, but we heard he was playing with 2 injured wrists at that time. So he still found a way to impact the game. He's physical. He has size. He's closer to 6'2" now. I think he'll tack on more weight. He'll get bigger and stronger. He was the best player in the QMJHL playoffs this year. And while I don't think his offensive upside is as high as Misa, Hagens, or Frundell, and a reason why he is behind them, he impacts the game in such a way that I think he's a winning hockey player. Like, I think that he's a guy that's going to help you. He's going to play tough matchups. He's going to be able to kill penalties. He's going to be able to, to be a disruptor in your forward lineup. And, I think that he's the kind of guy that can really make a difference for a team. He's won a lot, won the QMJHL title this year, won the Holinka Gretzky Cup, or actually won the Under-18 World Championship last year. He's a guy that Hockey Canada wants on their teams when they're going for championships, and he helps them deliver on that. So I got a lot of time for him. I think that, ultimately, to me, his ceiling probably projects more as a great number 2 center, which is why I think if Chicago is considering that, it's an option. I also think he's of those guys that we've talked about, all of them, he is the most likely to be a center long term. I think he has the most advanced toolkit to be a center among those guys, plus the size profile, plus the ability to do things. He wasn't taking faceoffs this year, and then now we know why. It's because you can't do anything with 2 injured wrists. So I do think that he's going to be a significant option. Like I said, I think the offensive upside is a little bit lower on him, but he's going to be an impact player because of the variety of ways he can impact a game.
Before we let Chris go, and this might be a show worthy of going to overtime. Just going to say.
Yeah, I would say so.
But I wanted to get your we've been focusing solely on the number 3 pick. Blackhawks, if they make their number 25 pick later in the first round, there's a lot of different directions they could go. One guy that seems like the perfect Kyle Davidson pick, if he's still on the board at number 25. Wanted to get your thoughts on Cullen Potter out of Arizona State. He seems like a guy that has the skating and the offensive ability that is in the mold of a Blackhawks draft pick.
Yeah, he definitely fits the profile in terms of the speed component. I think that's the Blackhawks have built a quick team within their prospect system, a very mobile team, a group that's going to move pucks pretty fast. Potter is probably the best skater among forwards in this draft. He's got explosiveness, he's got speed, he's got that ability to make plays with his edges. Where I'm a little less, again, we're talking about a guy that's just right at 5'10", not going to get a lot bigger. He's, obviously really strong lower body. He's got that explosiveness with the skating and everything else. But my one concern, so I'm 31st on my list. My one concern is in the many viewings that I had of him this year, I felt like he created so much with his speed and yet didn't necessarily finish plays. His production was only okay in college. He was only okay at the World Under-18s. There were flashes of brilliance, so you like that. And certainly the speed component is going to be attractive to Chicago. But this might also be another situation where it's like, hey, our top six is, if Colin Potter is going to make it, it's going to be as a top six forward, because I don't think he has necessarily the details to be a guy that's going to, play gritty defensive minutes for you. I think he may eventually, find that and grow that into his game. But I think, if you're looking at your top six, again, you're getting a little bit concerned, because it's, he's just a hair over 5'10" at this point, based on the combine results. So there's a lot there.
Sounds a lot like Oliver Moore.
Yeah, but doesn't Moore's got more jam to his game, right?
More bite. Yeah. Moore's got more bite, and Moore is actually even more explosive skater. So, which is crazy, because Cullen is really, really good. So yes, but I would say, in terms of, you're exactly right. He fits kind of the profile, but I do think that they're going to have to get outside of that profile at some point to create some more variety within their lineup. It
sounds like Andreas Athanasiou. Really fast, will dazzle you with stick handling, then will fall down or not shoot the puck.
Yeah. Right. Cullen probably won't fall down, but it's just like, oh, the pass was there, or oh, the shot was there, and it just came a little bit too late.
I do want to ask one more, since we are already in overtime.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, and this is something that I don't think Kyle Davidson will fall into this, but do you feel like you were kind of mentioning with how the Panthers built their do you feel like there's a chance for an overcorrection with teams going for size? Like, you might see teams reach on McQueen or Jack Nesbitt or guys like that, where it's like there's a lot of players that have that 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" frame,
like Kirby Doc,
that turn into first round picks or high second round picks, that their talent level doesn't necessarily fit that spot, just because of, we need big bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to probably see that with Brady Martin. And again, I love the player. I have him in the top 10, but I think if he is a top 5 pick, I think that is influenced directly by Sam Bennett, by Sam Bennett, who was a number 4 pick, by the way. So, I mean, the thing is, he's a number 4 pick, but not, yeah, exactly. So anyway, I think at this point, I don't think the Blackhawks would draft size for the sake of size. I don't think that that's in their MO. I don't think that is the way that they do their business. We saw Merrick Vanacker last year. He's a little bit more of a grindier player on top of having some of that skill. And, that was a guy they kind of picked late. I think Sam Rinzel was a late first round bet on the size and the mobility, and it's paying off so far. But I do think that, Chicago is going to – they have some great flexibility there with that pick, and there's a lot of good options of guys that you could take a chance on. I don't think there's a lot of great options. There's no surefire NHL players in the 20s of this draft, I don't feel like. There's a lot of guys that are maybes. And so it's you have to be careful in that way. But there's a lot of guys that would fit the way that they play and fit what the kind of team they're building. And I think, there could be some really good defensemen available there. I know they're really well, they probably feel pretty well set on defensemen, but there will still be defensemen there. There will still be some centers there. There will still be some bigger wingers there. So there's a lot of options yet available to them in how they're going to do it. And it just so happens that this year's draft, on top of, the emphasis on size, there's a ton of 6'4" to 6'6" players in this draft. So you just wonder exactly where they'll end up. But I think there are a lot of options with that last first rounder, including trading. And, we'll have to see what happens, and we'll have to see what the board does. But to me, I think that the Blackhawks philosophy is they have a type, they stick to that type. And, I think that they're building an effective future roster with that. And then, you just need to find balance and might have to do that through trades and free agency and whatever else. But I'm excited to see kind of what they do. I'm excited to see what they do at 3. I'm excited to see what they do at the end of the first. A lot of options available to them.
All right, Chris, you've been incredibly generous with your time. I know you said you got another mock draft coming this week. You want to tell people where to find your stuff and kind of what to expect as we head into the draft?
Yeah, absolutely. FloHockey.tv is where you'll get more mock drafts, my final top 100 rankings, which dropped last week. And I've got a lot more to come. I usually do a notebook file right on draft day as well. That'll be at FloHockey.tv. And you can also catch me on my podcast, Called Up, the Prospects Podcast, with Cam Robinson, the other GOAT, if you will, if we'll allow multiples.
The Canadian GOAT.
The Canadian goat. Yeah, exactly. As long as I got, as long as I'm good, I'm good. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and you guys, I think it should be another exciting time to be following the draft and following these prospects. So always great to be with you.
All right, Chris. Thanks, man. Enjoy the week.
See you guys.
All right, take care. That is the GOAT, Chris Peters of FloHockey. We're going to wrap things up. We went overtime with y'all. I hope you appreciated that. If you missed it, if you jumped in late, we do have a massive sale going on our Die Hard memberships right now. $36 for the whole year. And yes, indeed, that does include a CHGO t-shirt upon sign up and 20% off all the merch, takeovers, golf outings, all that jazz. Definitely worth it. Pays for itself almost immediately just by getting the shirt. So go to allchgo.com/intro to sign up. We'd love to have you as part of our diehards. We're going to finish off the mailbag tomorrow. We got another guest coming on tomorrow as well.
From McKean's Hockey, one of the QMJHL scouts, Jeremy Ploward, will be joining us. So, again, we are hitting the draft.
Big-time draft
Big
stuff.
In the final lead-up. Speaking of joining as a diehard, I'm going to have a bunch of stuff that's going to be behind our diehard access leading up to the draft this week, including a 7-round mock.
Dang.
Yes. Only Blackhawks picks, but still 7 rounds worth.
All right. Sounds great. allchgo.com/intro. You'll get all of that. And, of course, preference on Mailbag Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Time. See you then.
We all silly like the mayor.